Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to the tennis vlog. We are into the business end at the Australian Open. The quarterfinals are coming up quickly, and I'm here to preview them, emphasis on the preview, and give a few little predictions as well. Now, I'm going to say before we get going, I'm here purely out of a sense of duty. I said right from the beginning of this tournament that I do preview and predictions from quarters onwards. To be honest, I didn't feel like I've been enough across all the players that are left in to effectively preview and predict these upcoming rounds. So I've been trying to get on top of things as much as possible. I don't know if this has happened. I've essentially done nothing except sleep, watch tennis, and go for the occasional rant for the past week and a half. So clearly I was just watching the wrong players, but I've done my best to get across things in order to effectively preview this for you and make it some kind of interesting. Just because there are some players that I haven't watched in depth, I will try and keep each preview to around 5 minutes, just so that we're not kind of rambling unnecessarily, just kind of trying to keep it more concise. We have some really interesting matchups, and I think at this stage usually there's one or two that are just obvious choices, and I'm not seeing so many here, so could get interesting, and let's get going. We'll start with the first day's quarterfinals, which are scheduled for this upcoming night if you're in the UK, and then we'll move on to day two. I'll alternate between women's matches and men's matches. So let's get going. We'll start off then with the world number 3, Naomi Osaka, and her clash against Hsieh su-wei, the world number 71. This is a clash even that almost wasn't set. Osaka was down double match point to Garbine Muguruza in the last round, fired an ace to save the first, outlasted a rally to save the second, and it was all one way for her from then. Muguruza, I don't think, won another game after that. Yeah, she lost the final set 7-5, and Hsieh, deeply impressive ever since that upset win over Andreescu. So as we always do, let's just take a quick look at the route both have taken to this round. We'll start with Hsieh su-wei. I don't know why I'm cutting my head off slightly here. There we go. Change this setup a bit. Okay. Hsieh su-wei, one of the lower-ranked players here in the last day. She had a great start against Svetlana Pironkova, who had a great run at the US Open, has been doing really well since her comeback, would have been a dark horse for many, I think. 7-5, 6-2. Then another straight sets upset of Andreescu, 6-3, 6-2. I thought that Hsieh was really playing at her peak there. The backhand was so unpredictable. It was consistently floating the length of the court and finding the baseline. Andreescu just didn't have a rhythm to go off, and that's what Hsieh does so effectively. She takes the rhythm away from you, which is why she's troubled Osaka in the past, and we'll get to that in a moment. She had a toughest match in the third round against Sara Errani, which might be because Errani herself doesn't have much weight of shot. That was 6-4, 2-6, 7-5 in the favour of Hsieh. They both had, I think, about 19 break points each. And yeah, we're struggling to convert. Both 9 of 19 break points converted, but Hsieh able to win the big ones to come across the line. And then I thought she might have it tough in the fourth round against Marketa Vondrousova, the number 19 seed, former French Open finalist. Vondrousova, one of those players that isn't just going to rally from the baseline. She has the drop shot. She can change things up. And Hsieh still able to come through convincingly, 6-4, 6-2. So that makes it an intriguing matchup of styles with Osaka, who would much rather have a big hitter to kind of feed off the pace from. So it had been one-way sailing for Osaka up until the Muguruza clash. 6-1, 6-2 over Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, 6-2, 6-3 over Caroline Garcia. I'm not sure if she even faced a break point in that one. She didn't. So she's been serving really impressively, has Osaka. 6-3, 6-2 over Jabeur, who is another player that's versatile, can mix it up, could have taken the rhythm away, but Osaka able to survive their good service numbers again. Even though she had a very low first serve percentage, she was performing when it mattered in the key moments. And then against Muguruza, well, that third set I think was the best quality tennis I've seen so far on the women's side. It was a bit up and down previously, Osaka losing the first set as Muguruza hit more of her spots, but then coming back in the second set. And really, I think Osaka had the momentum at the beginning of the third set, but she did get a little bit tight when things were still on serve to kind of give the advantage to Muguruza. And then Muguruza had those 2 match points on the return. And what did Osaka do? Fired a scorching ace down the tee. And at that point, just before that, actually, I took a screenshot because I just had a feeling that it was then or never for Muguruza. I didn't see, actually, even though she's got the game and she was, playing with so much depth and forcing Osaka to take the ball early time and time again, I didn't really see Muguruza necessarily getting to that position in the match. I thought that Osaka was kind of too mentally strong to fall at this stage, and ultimately she was. Once she'd fended off those match points, she didn't let Muguruza get close again, and that was just brilliant power hitting from the two of them. I think Osaka, she had to do something to throw Muguruza off, and she used the angles very effectively, getting them a bit shorter to spread Muguruza out. And she really just had to work hard. And what was big for me there was that it was more a case of Osaka winning the match than Muguruza losing. Usually if you see a player that's had match points and lost, there's always these calls of, oh, they choked, etc. But no, Osaka stepped up to win that, which makes it very hard for me to predict against her in this upcoming clash. Now, Hsieh, as I've said, is the kind of player that really has the tools to take down Osaka. Remember, Yulia Putintseva at Wimbledon in 2019 moved Osaka all around the court and beat her in straight sets. And even on a fast court, that's what Osaka hates, someone that takes the rhythm away from her. But she has managed to problem solve her way through this in the past. The head-to-head is 4-1 in the favor of Osaka. That is inclusive of their first meeting at the ITF event in Surbiton, which was also a quarter-final. Now, just because the head-to-head is 4-1, it doesn't mean this is going to be plain sailing for Osaka. The majority of their clashes have gone the distance, actually. I'm just looking to see how many haven't. Just one of their 5 clashes has failed to go to 3 sets. And their most recent 3-setter was actually in 2019 on a fast hard court, Cincinnati, and that was a 7-6, 5-7, 6-2 win for Osaka. So I'm not saying that Osaka will be untroubled here. She's going to have to really work hard, really focus, be quick on her feet, have a high first serve percentage, which she was lacking in the round against Jabeur. I think she did get up again, but she's yet to hit 70% of first serves landed. So if she really wants to be effective when it's on her racket, she needs to up that first serve percentage. But at the end of the day, if Osaka can save match points against Muguruza, I think mentally that makes her very tough to beat from here on out. And Hsieh is going to throw everything at her, but I'm just not sure if it's going to be enough. Because she's got such a problematic style of play, I think that, I'm tempted to say 3 sets. I think that I will go with, in this case, I have to take Osaka, and I think that she should be able to problem solve. But let's give Hsieh, because of her form, let's give her a chance. So Naomi Osaka in 3 sets in that one, I would say. So 1 down and a few more to go. Let's move on to the men. And the first scheduled men's clash, it is such an interesting one. I don't think anyone would have called this at the beginning of the tournament. Grigor Dimitrov, the number 18 seed in the world, number 21, up against qualifier Aslan Karatsev. What an amazing tournament he's having. Yeah, he had a good run of form at the back end of last year, but this is leaps and bounds for him to make a Grand Slam quarterfinal. So massive respect to him and the quality of tennis that he's been producing in Melbourne. So let's have a look at what these two have done so far. Let's start with Aslan, the Lion of Melbourne. He kicked off, obviously came through qualifying, but in the main draw, he kicked off with a 6-3, 6-3, 6-4 win over Major. Then dominant win over Igor Gerasimov, 6-love, 6-1. Love didn't surrender much there, and that saw him sailing into his 3rd round matchup with Diego Schwartzman. Commented on this match already. Wasn't a great matchup for Schwartzman. Karatsev is a player that hits is such a powerful, quick, flat shot, and Schwartzman's made for clay, so this was never going to be favourable for him in these conditions. But still, mentally, it was huge for Karatsev to be taking on the number 8 seed. There were a couple of tight situations. I think beginning of the third set, he didn't let anything get on top of him. 6-3, 6-3, 6-3. And then the matchup with Felix Auger-Aliassime. Now, I really didn't know if Karatsev would come through that match because yeah, he'd done well before, but with the exception of Schwartzman, who's built a different kind of surface, he hadn't really had a challenging match in his first couple of matches. So I'm not saying that those two opponents couldn't play great tennis, but they were not going to bring the kind of standard that someone like Auger-Aliassime, who'd just beaten Denis Shapovalov in straight sets, it just wasn't going to happen. This was going to be his most competitive match, and he did go down the early 6-3, 6-1 sets, but rebounded to come through 3-1, 1-6, 6-3, 6-3, 6-4. So deeply impressive for him. I'm sure there would have been some tightness from Auger-Aliassime's side of the net. You know, he's not yet had his Grand Slam breakthrough, and it was a dream draw, really, qualifier in the fourth round to make a quarterfinal. He played so well against Shapovalov, but you've got to hand it to the Russian. His 1-2 punch is a lethal weapon. I think he won the match on one of those, and his serve is a hard thing to his service games are hard things to get into. His service stats have been pretty solid. I think he's kind of his first serves landed have generally been in the low 60s, but he peaked at 71% versus Schwartzman, and his win percentage on the first serve is yet to drop below, I think, about 72%. So that's very strong serving numbers. And when you look at the style of tennis he likes to produce, going for those winners quickly, targeting the lines, using the serve out wide, those numbers are something that's very important and will be increasingly important against Grigor Dimitrov, who, I mean, these two are two of the players actually that I've seen the least of in this tournament, to the point where up until about an hour ago I'd barely seen Dimitrov play a point, so apologies to Grigor, but he hasn't dropped a set, so he must be doing something right. I'm always a little bit skeptical when it comes to Dimitrov because he can be playing great and then just completely go away in one match, but he's not shown any signs of that so far. It was an impressive start against Marin Cilic. Cilic not in great form, but a former finalist here, and with a game that suits the conditions. Low bouncing, very powerful. 6-4, 6-2, 7-6 for Dimitrov, then 7-6, 6-1, 6-2 over Alex Bolt in round 2. He didn't complete his third round match. Pablo Carreño Busta withdrew at 6-1 down, and then he had his most recent match in the fourth round against Dominic Thiem. 6-4, 6-4, 6-love. I believe that Thiem won a total of 6 points in the final set. So Thiem obviously far from his best, and he did mention that there were a few little physical issues. He's not going to go into detail. He's got his sportsmanship is too good. He respects Dimitrov too much. I think Dimitrov himself kind of acknowledged at the end there that all was not right, but you have to hand it to him because to maintain concentration and a sky-high level when your opponent, you're expecting more competition from them and they're clearly not delivering at their peak, that's deeply impressive, especially for someone like Dimitrov, who is known to kind of go on a wander when things get close or when there's a high pressure situation. So for him to come through that match 6-4, 6-4, 6-love, you got to hand it to him. Great stuff from Dimitrov, and it's not the first time that he's had success here. He's pushed top players in the past, and particularly with his game, you know, he's been so often compared to Federer throughout his career, and Federer is a player that is probably going to be slightly regretting the fact he didn't come here because these conditions for him would have been lovely. So Dimitrov with that one-hander, with his nimble movement around the court, and with his clean striking, really making the most of these conditions in Melbourne this year. But now he has kind of a tough mental test because he's very much the heavy favorite to come through against Karatsev, and it's not always worked out well for him when he's the favorite. I remember when he took out Nick Kyrgios here in 2018, and then he lost to Kyle Edmonds, and, you know, Edmund was playing great tennis, but Dimitrov in high pressure situations doesn't generally go down well. Apart from his, you know, standout ATP finals title victory, it's hard to point out instances where he's kept the run of form going. So I expect this to be a very challenging matchup for Dimitrov. These two are going to have some fast-paced rallies. They're both players where the ball pings off the strings when they're feeling it well. It might come down to the return stats because both of them have been serving so well and have such good serve percentages. Dimitrov's first serve has been generally, I think, above 68-70%. So it's been pretty strong from him. He's also saved 13 of the 15 break points that he's faced. Now that's key because I think when these two are playing both so well, it could come down just to those pressure moments, those key moments, and you look at those stats of Dimitrov having saved 13 of 15 breakpoints faced, and then you look at the fact that Dimitrov, the closest he's been pushed so far is to 2 tie breaks, and he's won both of those tie breaks. So it shows that he is actually so far, Dimitrov, having a cool head under pressure. And as much as I struggle to trust Dimitrov. It's kind of his fault and maybe a bit of my fault as well, but I hold my breath when I'm watching him. I'm really not sure how it's going to go, but I have to look at the numbers here when I don't have enough kind of physical watching of the tennis to go off and give him the benefit of the doubt, basically, that he does maintain his level to come through. So Karatsev has been absolutely looking fantastic, but I think I would take Dimitrov here, and, Alger Siem was up 2-0 before Karatsev came charging back. Do I give him a set? I'm not sure because Dimitrov hasn't dropped one yet and has looked good in the pressure moments. So I'll give Dimitrov the benefit of the doubt and say Dimitrov in 3 sets. But, Karatsev has been constantly proving people wrong, surprising people. Don't be surprised if he does the same here. Okay, so we move on. I'm already taking a little bit longer than I intended, but I'm sure we'll speed up. We're moving on to a big clash that we'll be seeing later on this first day of the quarterfinals. Simona Halep, the world number 2, up against Serena Williams, the world number 11, but seeded at 10, and they are going into their, I think, 12th meeting. So it's old stuff now, but it doesn't get old because they generally have some pretty good contests. Let's have a look at both of them so far then. So before I get into this one, but these two were both part of some big time matchups in the last round. Unfortunately, these are 2 of the matches I haven't caught up on because I'd already watched both of these players earlier in the event and I was trying to give more time to players that I barely glanced at, like Alexander Zverev, so I was trying to keep on top of that. I kind of called the way that Serena v Sabalenka played out was a little bit more caught off guard with the Swiatek-Halep scoreline, but with 2 players so capable, contrastive styles playing so well, nothing was going to be shocking at the end of the day. Let's start with Serena, given that she's seeded lowest. So you'll know that I've had my doubts about Serena, but of these 2 players, it was Serena that I mentioned as a title contender. So Serena, comprehensive scorelines to kick things off: 6-1, 6-1 over Lara Siegemans, 6-3, 6-love over Nina Stojanovic. Then she's kept it to straight sets by edging the first set against Anastasia Potapova, 7-6, 6-2. Then she was challenged by the very in-form Aryna Sabalenka, who obviously had won 3 of her last 4 titles coming into this event. I think that people need to be a little bit cautious, and I feel like all I'm doing regarding people and Serena is telling everyone to be cautious, but it can be so easy to be convinced by her form at the beginning of the event. That's not why she struggles these days. She struggles at the back end when it's more mentally and physically taxing. So, all in all, good, strong serving performances from Serena early on. Moving into that clash with Sabalenka, you'll have seen the highlights reels going around. Some terrific defense from Serena, covering that baseline like nobody's business. And she knew stepping out into that match that was something she would have to do. Sabalenka has been going for her shots from that first return, from the second point behind the serve, second shot behind the serve even. She's been very aggressive, very offensive. And Serena was able to take that in her stride, get over losing the second set to win 6-4, 2-6, 6-4. Now, the reason I kind of was taking Serena in that match was because of the similarities between the game styles of Sabalenka and Maria Sharapova, who Serena just dominated. For some reason, that is a game style that she just gravitates well to. She likes when the ball is coming deep and fast to the baseline, and she's not opposed to doing a bit of running about from side to side. The way that Serena can be thrown off her game and frustrated is when you're not moving her side to side, when you're moving her back and forth, when you're drawing her into the net and sending her back. And that is something that Halep could do effectively. So let's have a look at the route of Halep so far. She has struggled a little bit more than Serena. She was taken to 3 sets by Ayla Tomljanovic after a 6-2, 6-1 opening win over Lizette Cabrera. She was 5-2 down in that final set against Tomljanovic before winning a string of games to come through. Steadied the ship against Veronika Kudermetova 6-1, 6-3. Good win, Kudermetova in form, but then obviously dropped the first set to Swiatek before coming through 3-6, 6-1, 6-4. Heard that match was patchy, and it was going to be a bit of a mental battle for both as well, given that Swiatek had thrashed Halep at the French Open and had the pressure of trying to back that performance up. Halep obviously didn't want to go down again, but knew that a lot of the play wasn't exactly going to be on her racket. Her footwork had to be on point. Her movement had to be on point. And to be fair, for what I've seen from Halep so far, she has been impressive in those departments. So her coming through, not overly shocking. 3-6, 6-1, 6-4 for Halep in the end. She's winning, I think, generally a pretty high percentage of first serves. And of her and Serena, her first serve percentage has been more solid. It hasn't dropped below the high 60s, whereas Serena's has kind of flirted with the 50s, which isn't great for her considering it's such a big weapon. Now to look at the matchup between Halep and Serena. Once it gets to a certain point with these rivalries, I think route to a certain stage doesn't matter so much because they know each other's games so well. Halep might be the higher ranked player here, but I don't think she's going to feel a lot of external pressure. She said it herself, for her, Serena is the best ever, for many people as well, and she knows that she's going to have to play her best tennis in order to beat her, which she did the last time they played, obviously, in the 2019 Wimbledon final. I felt in my gut that Halep was going to have that one, but didn't have the nerve to call it at that point because I was still so sure that Serena was that close to 24. But Halep won that one 6-2, 6-2. That barely closed the gap though, because Serena still has that 9-2 head-to-head advantage. They're 3-1 to Serena at slams. All 3 of Serena's wins went to 3 sets, but obviously Halep won that most recent one in straight sets. I think the interesting thing here is that when Halep has beaten Serena, it's been a case of not allowing her to get going. So back in 2014, I think it was, in the group stage of the WTA finals, blew her off the court, but then Serena just took it to her in the final and won. And then in the Wimbledon final as well, Serena just never found her first serve, which I think is why that first serve percentage is so key for Serena. If she wants to have a hope of winning this match, she has to be winning quite a few quick points, big serves out wide, 1-2 punches, whatever it takes. She has to be kind of on top of this one from the get-go. But there is a high chance that it stretches long. And Serena's 7-1 on hard courts in this matchup, which is promising for her, particularly given the pace of this court. And yeah, Halep has the 2 wins in straight sets. So, like I say, if Halep's going to win this match, which I think she has strong chances to be honest with you, she has to move Serena not just side to side, but up the court. Kind of draw her in and pass her, lob her, the stuff that she was doing effectively in the Wimbledon final. Serena needs to try and keep the points short, and she needs to be quick on her feet as she was against Sabalenka. We need to move on to the other matches, so I'm going to bring this one to a close. They were very similar in terms of breakpoints converted in the last 2 matches, but Serena faced a lot more breakpoints, and I do feel that Halep, with her timing, will be able to take it to Serena as well. Halep did face 3 breakpoints to the 11 that Serena faced in the last matches, but Halep actually, on 2 of those 3 occasions, did actually lose the break points. Lose the game point, or however you want to say it. So it does show a little bit of Halep not responding well in those pressure moments. I am just going to base this on the history at this point. You know, Serena is still not the front runner for the trophy for me. It's Osaka for now, but I think that she's definitely a lead contender. I think either of those two, whoever comes through, has a good shot at the title. But just based on the history and based on the fact that ultimately this one's on Serena's racket, I will give her the benefit of the doubt. And given that so many of their clashes have been battles, I'll say Serena in 3 sets, because I think the most likely outcome for a Halep win is to take it in straights and not let Serena get going. So if I'm going with Serena, I'll say Serena to win this match in 3 sets even. You can tell I'm tired. Right, 3 down, a few more to go. Taking a bit longer than I thought, but hey, who's surprised? Next one. Novak Djokovic, world number 1, top seed, up against Alexander Zverev, who has been kind of running through under the radar. He's only dropped a set, but at the same time, his standard and caliber of opposition has not been the same as Djokovic's, which is something I think you have to take into consideration when you're kind of looking at how these matches might go. Let's have a look so far then at what Zverev has done. He dropped actually his first... The only set that he dropped was the first set that he played against Giron in the first rounds. Marcus Giron, he won 6-7, 7-6, 6-3, 6-2. Then he had Maxime Cressy, serve and volley, 7-5, 6-4, 6-3 over the qualifier there. Adrian Mannarino could have posed a threat. He, sends a lot of balls back. He can keep the rallies going and test you in that regard. And Zverev had a very close contest with Mannarino back end of last year. So for him to come through 6-3, 6-3, 6-1, impressive. And then he backs up that win with a win over the number 23 seed, Dusan Lajovic, 6-4, 7-6, 6-3. Like I say, haven't seen much of Zverev this tournament, but what I saw from against Lajovic, very good. I like that he's moving into the net a lot. That is very key for Zverev in these conditions, because he is so well balanced and such a good mover for his height at the baseline. It can sometimes lead to him hanging back when really he should be using the conditions to play more offensively, which is the kind of tennis that got him to the 2-sets-to-love lead over Dominic Thiem in New York. That's the kind of tennis that he needs to be playing more often if he wants to get the big wins. And even though he went down the early break against Lajovic, it was him that came through in straight sets. Impressive service numbers for Zverev. Let me find them. I wrote them down earlier. So his lowest first serve percentage of the tournament so far is 68%. Just wait in a moment, I can see this buffering. Okay, I think we're good again. So he is, however, now facing one of the, if not the best returner in the sport. So he's facing Djokovic, who is going to make life a little bit more difficult for him in his service games. So Djokovic's path then. He started off in fierce form against Jeremy Chardy, 6-3, 6-1, 6-2, and all his numbers were great there. He was looking comfortable. He was getting on top of the ball. He was moving brilliantly. There was just not much that Chardy could do, even though he moved into the court, tried to change things up. That was a vintage Djokovic in round 1. Round 2, it got a little bit more tricky against Francis Tiafoe, who could go toe-to-toe with Djokovic from the baseline, but also can play from all areas of the court. Djokovic, though, very steady and very calm, despite being edged in that second set, which is unusual for Djokovic because he's usually so big in those pressure moments, and he can usually outlast his opponents mentally when he's not beating them physically. So Djokovic, I felt, did well to not get thrown in that third set and to peak when he needed to in the tiebreak, 6-3, 6-7, 7-6, 6-3. Then it completely changed against Taylor Fritz. He was up 2-sets-to-love, and then he picks up this injury. I've seen people suggest that Djokovic was faking the injury. I have sympathy for Djokovic because I have a very, very low pain threshold. So the slightest thing happens, I cut my finger, I think I'm gonna die. I think that Djokovic is pretty similar to me in that respect. I think that he is injured. I don't think that he's injured to the extent that he thought he was in the third round, but there have definitely been some physical issues there. You could see that a lot of the shots, the ground strokes were coming just from arm movement in the third and fourth sets against Taylor Fritz, and he really didn't look to be getting anywhere close to what he'd been before until the fifth set. He did very well mentally, physically to come through and win that match in 5 sets. So obviously all the question marks were, how's he going to play Raonic? Is he going to be able to get on court, etc.? Clearly he was going to go out on court and play Raonic because he was 11 love up in the head-to-head, and you just don't dump a match like that. He did drop the second set, but he won the final 2 sets pretty comprehensively. 7-6, 4-6, 6-1, 6-4 for Djokovic. And Raonic, I felt always that he's the player with the kind of weapons that should be able to beat Djokovic, you know, big serve, ability to move up to the net. But Djokovic does like a target at the net, which is more uncommon, I think, on the ATP. You've got a lot of guys that like to move into the court, but fewer guys that like to try and pass them. Whereas Djokovic, because he's so well balanced, because he's so at ease on the stretch, he's not so fussed by that. Also, he was able to get a lot of balls deep to the Raonic backhand, and while Raonic's serve and forehand are brilliant, the backhand more of a liability. So I think Djokovic tactically did very well there. Clearly still not at his physical best though, which is what makes this clash with Zverev so interesting, because without a doubt in my mind, Zverev is a player that can take down Djokovic and can take him down with the kind of form that he's brought to Melbourne. And it's difficult when you don't quite know where Djokovic is at physically, because that can have so much of an impact. Like, he wasn't injured at the end of last year, but he was not at kind of his highest levels of energy and that kind of thing, and that showed. So I think a lot of this is going to depend on how Djokovic comes out. He's not been practicing as usual. He's been focusing on resting between matches, which seemed to work for him against Raonic. We'll just have to see. Zverev is going to have to play this one tactically very well, because he does have the options, and it might be tempting for him to move up the court and just try and play everything at the net on his serve, because I think he was winning a high percentage of net points, about 70% of his net points, I think, in his last match. So it's definitely a good option for him. But if Djokovic really is still physically uncomfortable, Zverev is going to fancy his chances more at the baseline, extending rallies. So the big thing for him is not to get distracted between the two, to kind of pick a process of play and pick a strategy, and not get lost between too much. He needs to be very clear and very focused on what he's doing. And Djokovic, you know, as long as he can manage the pain, I think he's still as big a threat as ever. He was reaching well against Raonic. He was not looking in too much discomfort. And so it is tough to say how much of an impact his physical state is going to have. These two very similar service numbers. I've spoken about how good Zverev has looked on serve, but Djokovic as well. The serve is something that has really helped him in these kind of moments of physical uncertainty, going big on the first and second serves. His first serve, second serve percentage, not so far off Zverev. I think Zverev's edging it, but Djokovic isn't too far away. And Djokovic is a better returner than Zverev. Zverev can be lethal off that backhand side, but Djokovic will know to try and avoid the Zverev backhand. So this is where it gets strategically and tactically very interesting. Zverev has comfortably won more return points, I think, in every match he's played. Their breakpoint conversion rate is pretty similar. Djokovic won less return points versus Fritz for obvious reasons. Things started to go awry physically. But overall, I'd say that these two are pretty level so far. So it kind of comes down to potentially mentally who's going to handle the big moments better. I think I said this about another of the matches earlier, but with the way the stats are for these two, I think that's kind of what it indicates. And in that regard and in that department, it's very hard to bet against Djokovic, because, you know, he wasn't at his best at the French Open, but he still managed to edge past Pablo Carreño Busta, and he still managed to edge past Stefanos Tsitsipas, who was playing a very high level of tennis. So Part of me really wants to take Zverev here because he has beaten Djokovic on big stadiums before. He beat him in the final of the ATP Finals 2018, straight sets. He beat him in their first ever meeting at the Masters event in Madrid. But Djokovic does lead the head-to-head 5-2. Their most recent meetings have been close and have been on hard courts, including at the 2021 ATP Cup. I think that, just cutting it short here, based on mentality, I do think that Zverev could win this. You could almost say that he should win this with the state that Djokovic is in. But at this moment in time, I don't have the confidence to bet against Djokovic's big moment mentality. So I think based on the stats, based on the way they're both playing, this one should go the distance, but I'll bet on Djokovic to edge it, and I'm going to say Djokovic to win this one in 5 sets. I mean, at the end of the day, Djokovic was my pick to win this whole thing, so I better stick with him for now. So that's day 1 wrapped up, just over half an hour, not so bad, I guess. Moving on to the second day, and we'll see if we make this any quicker. So, starting with a women's match, an all-American affair between Jennifer Brady and Jessica Pegula. Now, this one could get really interesting. Brady, the number 22 seed, world number 24, and Pegula, the world number 61. But playing above her ranking, Pegula is a player that has had her injury struggles over the years, but is finding form in Melbourne, and she's had some convincing victories. So let's take a look at Pegula first of all. She took out Victoria Azarenka in round 1. I listed Azarenka as kind of an outside title contender here, but the hard quarantine hit her hard. She just had not had any match prep heading into this tournament, and it showed against Pegula. Still kept it close because she's such a great hitter and such a great competitor, but 7-5, 6-4 for Pegula, and she has beaten a notable name, Pegula, in every round. 6-love, 6-1, she absolutely thumped Stosur in round 2. Got a feel for Sam Stosur, doesn't like playing her home Grand Slam. It's just a mental thing, I think, at this point. Then she beat Kristina Mladenovic straightforwardly, 6-2, 6-1. Mladenovic coming off a good first round win over Maria Sakkari. And Mladenovic, a player that can mix it up, versatile. I think looking at this list of players here, Pegula has come through a string of big names and a wide variety of playing styles that might well equip her for this clash. Mladenovic, she saw off straightforwardly, and then she dropped her first set against Elina Svitolina, and can't blame her for that because Svitolina had great form. She was looking very convincing, but like I say, with Svitolina, however well she's playing, there's always someone that's that fraction better. This tournament, it was Pegula, 6-4, 3-6, 6-3, but that was hard for Pegula. She really had to be mentally sound, mentally strong. Svitolina, great counterpuncher, great depth of shot, constantly going for it. Pegula, very committed to moving into the court, and she's got great feel, she's got great hands, so when she's at the net, she's not just bashing a volley away, she has the presence of mind to know when to slice it, chop it, drop it short. The one thing I would say about Pegula is I'm not sure that she's as competent on the back foot as Brady, so that might be something to look at in this clash. Jennifer Brady, then, what a player right now. She had some of the best tennis of the tournament at the US Open, didn't have the best lead up into this event, but she's making the most of it now, hasn't dropped a set. 6-1, 6-3 over Bolsova Zadoinov in the first round, then 6-1, 6-2 over Madison Brangle. Kaya Juvan, her third round opponent, that was 6-1, 6-3, so dropping a mere handful of games early on. And then against Donna Vekic, she had her toughest test. Vekic injured though, she had one of her legs strapped, and I don't think she was able to move as freely as she would have liked. But Brady still able to come through 6-1, 7-5. Credit to her focus, and credit to the way she's able to play from all areas of the court. She is such a heavy hitter, is Jen Brady, and so many players struggle with that. Vekic is a power player, she has a clean strike on the ball, but Brady has this great mix of power and topspin that gives her a lot of margin for error. And I mentioned about Pegula being questionable sometimes when put on the defense on the stretch. Brady, when she's stretched out on that forehand wing, she will toss an angle back and she's straight back in the rally. She is looking pretty good in Melbourne and getting some cheap points on the serve as well. She's got a big serve on her. Pegula has that power in that serve as well. I'm not quite sure it's to the extent of Brady, but I think that her versatility kind of makes up for it. She's got a nice drop shot to mix things up, and I think that's what you're looking at here. Brady, the marginally more powerful, but Pegula able to mix it up and has great tennis IQ. She knows when to change the direction of the rally. Her off forehand is something beautiful when she's timing it right, the way she steps around it and nails the sideline. She isn't afraid to go for the big shot, Pegula, particularly off that forehand wing, and she can kind of conjure up winners from everywhere. The thing that I'm concerned about for her in this clash is what happens if Brady puts her on the run too often. But two great competitors here, and what makes it interesting is this is a clash of two players that know each other very well. Both American, good friends, played each other before. Their head-to-head, official head-to-head WTA stands at 1-love in the favor of Pegula. And now that was at the 2020 Cincy event last year, Cincinnati, which was played at the venue in New York. So Pegula won that one 7-6, 6-4, slim margins, and then obviously Brady played some of the best tennis of the US Open to make semis. So that was not a point in time where Brady was not at her best level. This is a tough one for me to call because I think that Brady looks marginally the safer option of these two, but at the same time, she's the more obvious pick, and there might be a little bit of pressure on her here. And I'm not sure how many people watching this will have watched one of my previous live Q&A videos where I was talking about the Shapovalov versus Auger-Aliassime matchup, and I said that as good as Denis Shapovalov had looked this tournament, sometimes familiarity and coming up against a player that's a good friend and knows your game so well, that can kind of balance that out, and it can kind of level out your red hot form a bit. And I do believe that this could be the case with Brady and Pegula. I'm not writing Brady off as a title contender. I think if she plays the kind of tennis she played back end of last year, she could definitely win a major, but she's not my front runner for this title. I think she is going to lose at some point at this point in time. And I do think that Pegula has the tools to get it done, but she has to get things into her control early. That drop shot is something that she can use very effectively. She doesn't want to be going on and on at the baseline with Brady. She either wants to move herself up the court or draw Brady up the court. I think that drop shot could be very effective and very useful. At the end of the day, what kind of makes this decision for me is that every single year, without fail, at the Australian Open, since I think 2013, there has been a breakout women's semi-finalist, a player with a lot of potential, a lot of promise that has never reached a maiden major semi-final before. Brady has reached a semi before. She reached her maiden semi in New York. And it's been consistently happening. We've seen Stevens, Bouchard, Konta, Collins, Kenin last year, etc. It's something that happens every single year. It's consistent, hasn't failed for a while. I think it's going to happen again this year. I don't think it's going to be Hsieh, su-wei. I have question marks about whether it's going to be Karolina Muchova. So I think I have to go with Pegula to be that player. I think I have enough confidence to think that she could do something here and she could unsettle Brady. A little bit nervous going for her because I think Brady has looked the stronger, but then Brady has had the more straightforward path. She's not had as many challenges, whereas Pegula has been up against a noteworthy name every single round. So I'm going to give Pegula the benefit here, and I'm going to say Pegula to win this match via an upset. And it really is kind of an upset, I think, or would be, with the form that Brady's in. And because they're both playing so well, competing so well, and because they know each other so well, I'm going to say 3 sets. Pegula in 3 sets there. So we move on to a men's clash between another pair of players that know each other very well, Daniil Medvedev and Andrei Rublev. This is the projected quarterfinal, so applause to both of them for making this stage. Rublev, the number 7 seed, and Medvedev, the number 4 seed. And Rublev's kind of up against it here. We'll get to why. Let's start with Rublev, because he is the lower ranked player. Rublev has yet to drop a set, I believe, and I'm correct. So 6-3, 6-3, 6-4 over Hanfman in round 1, then against Monteiro 6-4, 6-4, 7-6. Close tiebreak there, 10-8. Then he played Feliciano Lopez, who would have liked the conditions here. Lefty, crisp shots, but 7-5, 6-2, 6-3 for Rublev on that occasion, and then he didn't have to complete his 4th round match. He actually went down a break at the back end of that second set to Casper Ruud, who used the backhand slice very effectively just to change up the rhythm, make Rublev go for his shots and overhits. But he was broken back. Rublev won the first 2 sets 6-2, 7-6, and Ruud decided he'd had enough. Yeah, he did have a physical issue. I think he had the trainer on, but he did throw in the towel there. 2 sets to love down with Rublev playing at that kind of level. You're not going to fancy your chances at coming back. So 6-2, 7-6 for Rublev via retirement to move into this match with Medvedev. A player that he's not had success over in the past, but you shouldn't be writing him off because his offensive tennis is tough to get past. I think he's got a bit more work to do on the defense and on the return, but as far as his offensive tennis goes, there's not much to fault, really, where Rublev is concerned. That's why he won the most titles of anyone on the ATP last year. But Medvedev, also a player in red-hot form. His first round over Vasek Pospisil, player that likes to rush the net, 6-2, 6-2, 6-4, so impressive start. Roberto Caballas Baena was his second round opponent, 6-2, 7-5, 6-1 for Medvedev. Then it got interesting because at that point I thought, well, Medvedev's rolling for a few rounds. Didn't happen against Filip Krajinovic, and that was a 6-3, 6-3, 4-6, 3-6, 6-love win for Medvedev. I addressed that in the last Q&A video. As I've said, and I'm going to sound like a stuck record, you do not beat Daniil Medvedev at the moment, you make him beat himself. And the way Krajinovic was able to sneak that 3rd set really frustrated Medvedev and just threw him off his game for a while. And Krajinovic did a good job of doing that with his own game, coming to the net at the right moments, using drop shots, backhand slices at the right moments, that kind of thing. And that's what you've got to do with Medvedev, unsettle him. 4th round, though, he was not unsettled against Mackenzie McDonald, 6-4, 6-2, 6-3, back to normal service for Medvedev. He was winning 78% of first serve points, 67% of his second serve points, so strong in those departments, converted 6 of 7 break points as well. So looking strong once again, Medvedev, and will definitely be fancying his chances in this next match because he does hold a 3-love head-to-head record over Rublev, and if we're looking at Challenger Futures matches, etc. as well, you're looking at 4-love for him because he won their first meeting in Budapest, straight sets 2016. He's not dropped a set, Medvedev, against Rublev. It was 6-2, 6-3 in Cincinnati 2019. Then St. Petersburg, Russia 2019, it was 6-4, 7-5. And then at the US Open, 7-6, 6-3, 7-6. Remember watching that clash like it was yesterday. Just very big in the high pressure moments from Medvedev. And then Dominic Thiem kind of did the same thing to him in the next round and sent him packing. But you can see from these straight sets wins for Medvedev that it's not been all straightforward for him. Rublev has been doing his bit, but I think it's a case of Rublev being very secure on serve, Medvedev kind of struggling to make the break through, but when push comes to shove, when it comes to a tie break, when it comes to the back end of a set, he then has the better head and the stronger tennis, and Rublev maybe crumbles a slight bit. So it's difficult to outright predict Rublev to win this. I know that he's an outside pick for the trophy for a lot of people, but with this being the head-to-head, if it was 3-love, 4-love to Medvedev and Rublev had won a handful of sets, it would be easier for me to predict Rublev to win here. But even though he's got best of 5 sets to play with, it's very difficult to go from not having won a set to beating the opponent in a Grand Slam quarterfinal. That's a big leap to make. And I think that Rublev would probably need Medvedev to relent a bit with his service form. So I think that despite the little hiccup he had against Krajinovic, I'm just not sure that Rublev can do as much to throw Medvedev in terms of what he can do with his game. He's going to give him trouble on the return with the big serves in play, with his advances to the net. But Medvedev's going to know that's coming in a similar way to Djokovic. He's not going to overly mind those net approaches unless they're done when Medvedev's like reeling off the side of the court. He's just very well balanced, and he can find the spaces very, very well. And I don't know, I could say quite a bit more about this, but the thing is, for me at the moment, just with Medvedev's form and the history between these two, I think Rublev could trouble, and if he gets a set, he could frustrate Medvedev and could get to the win that way. But for me, this one is probably on the racket of Medvedev, as convincing as Rublev looks on serve when the match is on his racket at the moment. So I am going to take Medvedev on this occasion, and I think just to give Rublev some props for how he's played, I'm not writing him off here. I think that he could do something, but if I had to make the pick, I would take Medvedev to get across the line. So I'll say Daniil Medvedev, and I'll take him in 4 sets for this one, which means we're almost done. We have 1 women's match and 1 men's match still to go. So we have the top seed on the women's side, the world number 1, Ashley Barty, up against Karolina Muchova, who is ranked substantially lower, I think, but not to be overlooked. She's got so much going on in her game. She beat Karolina Pliskova, and she just had a very impressive win over Elise Mertens. So Muchova, 27 in the world, and seeded at, what's her seeding here? Is it about the same? 25, seeded at 25. This is going to be Barty's biggest test so far, I think, so I'll be watching this with interest, because so far Barty just hasn't looked overly troubled, and I haven't expected her to, because she's had a pretty kind draw compared to that overloaded bottom half of the draw. But let's start with Muchova, because she's the underdog here. So Muchova got off to a good start in the first round with a win over Yelena Ostapenko. We know what Ostapenko's like these days, streaky, hot and cold, so it's very hard to say what she's going to do, and Muchova is the kind of player that she would struggle against. She's got a lot of different things going on in her game, and like 1 or 2 others still in this draw, doesn't give you much rhythm. 7-5, 6-2 for Muchova. Backs that up with a 6-4, 6-1 win over Mona Bartel. Then she had the win over Pliskova, which was impressive because it got close, and I believe she was 5-love down in the second set. Now, to a degree, you've got to put some of that on Pliskova. With her weapons at 5-love up, she should really have closed that set out, but credit to Muchova for not writing herself off and coming back from that deficit. 7-5, 7-5 over Pliskova in that match, and then another hard-fought match against Elise Mertens. 7-6, 7-5 in favor of Muchova. I saw the end of that one. She had great commitment to moving up the court. She was very fluid with it. She was very controlled, very calm, and she just knew she had to make sure that Mertens didn't have her on a string too much, because Mertens is such a clean hitter of the ball. It's so crisp. I mentioned it before that when she's playing at her best level, Mertens, it looks difficult to know how to beat her. But there are these players that can take her rhythm away from her, and she did give Muchova a little bit of different things to look at, Mertens, but eventually Muchova too big in the big moments, and that makes it particularly interesting as she comes up against Barty, because with Barty's level, this could get tight, and she has dealt really well with tight moments. So Barty got going with a love win over Danka Kovanic, and frankly was just untroubled, looked absolutely flowing in every department. Pushed closer in a second set against Daria Gavrilova, but again came through 6-1, 7-6, 6-2, 6-4 over the number 29 seed Katerina Alexandrova in the round 3, and then a 4th round win over Shelby Rogers, 6-3, 6-4. Very impressive, I thought, because Rogers, a player that could have caused Barty trouble, deep, consistent shots. She can kind of rip a winner out of nowhere as well off either wing, so that was going to be challenging, and Barty looked very self-assured, very focused, all the way up until she served for the match at 6-3, 5-2, had double match point at 40-15, double faltered, 3 more unforced errors, and it was back on serve, and she did serve it out to Love very convincingly to finish with, but that little blip there gives Muchova something to take a hold of, because she knows that there are vulnerabilities and she knows that there are chinks in the armor for Barty. So, where does this one go? I think that the head-to-head is 1-love. 1-love in the favor of Barty. Their only other meeting was at a Grand Slam. It was the US Open 2018, 6-3, 6-4 in Barty's favor. Muchova hadn't come through into the big league at that point in time, but neither had Barty. She hadn't got her ranking up close to where it is now at that point in time. How much bearing is that going to have on this match? I don't know. These two are going to put on a show, I think, because two players that aren't just going to go toe-to-toe from the baseline. They are going to change it up. I think we'll see both of them maybe trying to move up the court. Something that's been very impressive for Barty has been her serve. She's quite a small player, Barty, and I think for someone of her height, she probably has the most impressive serve that I've seen, able to get the pace on it and utilize it effectively. So that's been key for her, particularly in navigating situations this tournament that could have got tricky. Barty was a title contender for me, but like I said, Jessica Pegula, Muchova fits the bill of that player that's played a great tournament and makes their maiden semi-final, which tends to happen at the Australian Open. Sorry, I can feel my throat going. So it is actually difficult to call this one just because of the way that Barty went out to Kenin last year, and obviously Kenin then went on to win the title. But Barty should technically have won that semi-final in straight sets. She did all the work with the backhand slice, with the grinding during the rallies, with ripping the forehand at the right moments. And then she struggled in the pressure moments when it got really tight. So it was 2 tight sets that went in the favor of Kenin. And based on what Muchova's done so far in this tournament, we could have another couple of tight sets in this match. And based on the way that Barty served it and failed to close it out against Shelby Rogers the first time around, I'm not really sure how Barty will respond in that situation. But at the same time, it's hard to bet against her just based on how she's been flowing off all cylinders so far this tournament. Obviously, she won the title coming into this week. And Barty very much, I think, liking the lack of a crowd. I don't think there should be a crowd in for this next match. It might be the last day that people aren't able to be in the stadium. But she mentioned about liking to hear the ball coming off the strings and the sound of it helping her, keeping her on track, that kind of thing. Oh, it's tough. Will Barty drop a set? Will she lose in straight sets? I really don't know, but I've been impressed with both these players, and I had one of them down as a title contender at the start of the event. That was Barty. Was a little blip at the back end of her match against Rogers real reason to doubt her? I don't know, so I'll give her the benefit, and I think that I'll say Barty to win this one. And I don't think she'll be against having a fight. She did have a couple of closer matches in her title run prior to this. So I think I'll say Barty to win this one in 3 sets. Which brings us down to our final match. And I think potentially actually one of the toughest to call between the world number 2 and number 2 seed Rafael Nadal and Stefanos Tsitsipas. Again, the projected quarterfinal, and credit to all the seeds in the bottom half making it to this stage. It definitely means things are going to be interesting from here on out. So, Nadal came past his nemesis, Fabio Fognini, in straight sets, and Tsitsipas comes into this having had a walkover in the 4th round because Matteo Berrettini withdrew. That's a shame because Berrettini was in great form at ATP Cup. He's got a wicked forehand, great net play, big serve that can very much be utilised in faster conditions. So I think that Tsitsipas, having been pushed to 5 sets by Thanasi Kokkinakis in round 2, could have had a hard time of it there. But he won't be saying no to that because he'll be well rested for this match against Nadal. And I think that, you know, he's already had that battle against Kokkinakis and was able to come through that. And really, you just want to be physically fit for that match with Nadal because Nadal can make these matches so testing. So, Tsitsipas 6-1, 6-2, 6-1 over Gilles Simon, looking very good form in that first round. Simon, a player that extends a lot of rallies, and it just makes things so physically taxing, but Tsitsipas able to come through comprehensively. Then he had the match against Kokkinakis, which I felt he did very well to come through mentally, because Kokkinakis obviously had the crowd on his side, was hitting a big ball, was doing some great stuff with the backhand up the line and cross court, and the 2 sets that he won were sets that he edged. So 6-7, 6-4, 6-1, 6-7, 6-4 for Tsitsipas, and able to come through that in 5. And you could tell by his reaction at the end of that match that it had taken a lot focus-wise, physically. He had good commitment to getting the big points on serve at the end, I thought, moving up the court. And then he got back to business with a 6-4, 6-1, 6-1 win over Mikael Ymer. And really, I think the walkover will be of benefit to him coming into this match. Nadal was looking very comprehensive at the beginning of the tournament, and lately it's got a little bit more questionable. 6-3, 6-4, 6-1 over Laszlo Dare in the first round, then 6-1, 6-4, 6-2 over Michael Mmoh. Had to feel for the American because he tried a lot of different things and Nadal just had an answer every time. So I was very impressed with Nadal at the beginning. If you watch my tournament preview, you'll remember me saying that I don't expect Nadal to win this event, because however well he's playing, there's usually someone that just takes it up a few levels to stop him and exposes whatever vulnerabilities there are in his game. But so far so good, and also impressive in the third round against Cameron Norrie, who threw him some very different challenges, was testing him out in terms of his consistency, and very few players are able to do that to Nadal. A lot of the time, if you're dueling with him from the baseline, then you're in trouble. Not so with Norrie. He's got very good balance when he's stretched out wide. He's also a lefty, which other lefties don't like to play against. And he was outlasting Nadal on some of those longer rallies. Nadal not as clean as he would like, but had a better head in the biggest moments. Came through 7-5, 6-2, 7-5, and Nadal really went after the first shot behind the serve when he needed to, when he was in some sticky situations. Now, the win over Fabio Fognini looks impressive by scoreline. It was 6-3, 6-4, 6-2 in the favour of Nadal, but actually I don't think either player got too close to hitting their best level. And there are some explanations for this. You know, they've had their rivalry in the past, and I think that that was probably playing on the mind of both of them. And Fognini, I think, kind of erratic at times from 4-all in the second set, which really cost him, because if he'd have taken that second set, it could have been maybe not a different eventual outcome, but it could have been a different match from there. However, Nadal able to come through the pressure moments, 6-3, 6-4, 6-2, kind of rolled through the third set once Fognini had let that second set go, despite the fact he's come from 2 sets to love down to beat Nadal before, couldn't really get anything going. So it's difficult to know what to take from that match for Nadal because of the mental aspects of the matchup with Fognini. It was a very different level to what we'd seen from him in those first 3 rounds. And I saw that he posted that he was watching the match back as soon as he got back to the hotel. So he would have been looking for those little kind of glitches from him and the things that went wrong. There were a number of kind of off forehands down the line that he would always have made that he missed. So that is a little bit worrying for him. But he's still got that high win percentage on the first serve. He's making sure to stay up on top of the baseline and be aggressive behind it. And that is absolutely necessary against Tsitsipas, who will be looking to get on top of him and will be looking for a little bit of revenge. Because if you remember, Tsitsipas had a very impressive win in the 4th round here over Federer in 2019. Then he got to the semi-finals against Nadal, was kind of destroyed by him and was absolutely crushed. And I think in a way that match was almost the making of Tsitsipas in terms of stuff that he did after that. He won the 2019 ATP finals, and I think he took a lot from that defeat. It was one that he took very hard. He does have the one win over Nadal, but it's Nadal that's dominant on the head-to-head, 6-1 in the favour of the Spaniard, but the clashes have been getting closer. So their last 2 meetings have been on hard courts, both of them at the ATP finals, so 2019 and 2020. Nadal a winner in 3 sets on both occasions, 6-7, 6-4, 7-5 in 2019, 6-4, 4-6, 6-2 in 2020. In 2019, Nadal was actually the only player to beat Tsitsipas at the event that Tsitsipas went on to win. Their meetings have all come at high-profile clashes, really, since their first meeting in Barcelona 2018. Nadal thrashed straight sets, but it's a while ago. Canada 2018, Nadal went in straights, and then at the Australian Open 2019, obviously that was straightforward, but things have been closer since then. Tsitsipas beat him on clay in the semi-final of Madrid 2019. Nadal got revenge in straight sets in Rome, but then it's been the 2-3 setters at the ATP finals. So it shows that Tsitsipas has the game to trouble Nadal, and there's no doubt in my mind that Tsitsipas has the game to use these conditions. Move in behind the serve, put Nadal on the stretch. Nadal not as keen on facing players at the net as the likes of Novak Djokovic. Some of you who've been watching tennis for the last 10 years will remember the way that Dustin Brown beat Nadal at Wimbledon, just repeatedly closing the net on a fast surface. And I think that Tsitsipas will be looking to do a lot of that here. I think he'll be a little bit more at Nadal's mercy on the return if Nadal can keep up the pressure that he's applying with his first serve. There were some injury concerns for Nadal at the beginning of the tournament, but I think these have been pushed to the side a little bit. That said, Nadal did go down pretty straightforwardly to Dominic Thiem in the quarterfinals last year after having looked decent, and he was wobbly when put under pressure in the pressure moments of that clash, which makes this one difficult to analyse because actually in the couple of moments where Tsitsipas has been under real pressure at this event, those 2 tie breaks against Kokkinakis, he lost both tie breaks, which does show that he's getting a little bit wobbly when he's under some scoreboard pressure. In my opinion, Nadal's not that great at the moment under the scoreboard pressure either. He's not nailing all his marks, but when he really needs to, he's coming through. Very tough to call this one because I think Tsitsipas will be out for revenge and will be able to use the conditions, will be able to make this a tough contest, but I'm banking on Nadal being able to up his level from the Fognini clash. I think he'll probably know that he was fortunate to survive that meeting in straight sets, given the level of tennis that he produced. It was back and forth, on and off from him, and it needs to be more consistent against Tsitsipas. But of these two, I think Tsitsipas, is well balanced at the baseline, and his movement has improved tremendously over the past 2 or 3 years. But Nadal is still going to be the front runner in that department. I think that, Nadal's still not the pick for me to win the title, but I think I can see him making semis. So just for this one, I think it could go the distance, actually. I think it could be 4 or 5 sets, potentially 5. But Nadal, as much as his game is up and down, and as much as he did falter under some pressure in big moments at the ATP finals, for example, last year, he will take confidence, I think, from the head-to-head here and from their previous meeting here, and he should be able to edge it. So I think that Nadal's just... Yeah, I think I'll edge Nadal here. 5 sets, let's say, because I think Tsitsipas has had the level and has the competitive fire, but Nadal has been able to edge their most recent meetings. I'll say he does so again, just for this match. Rafael Nadal to win in 5 sets. And we're done. Just over an hour. I knew I wouldn't be able to keep this as short as I meant to, but at least you got something. Thank you very much to everyone that's tuned in live. It does take a little bit of a time for these to kind of process and be ready to watch again on the watch page, but I'll put some links out on Twitter for people to watch if you missed it live. Let me know in the comments who your picks are to make it through the quarters. Always the toughest stage to call for me because lots going on and hard to keep across everything, but I'm hoping that I'll be fully informed on every single match heading into the semi-finals, so no pressure. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting lineup of matches, and definitely looking forward to seeing who can utilize the conditions and if anyone can overturn some disadvantageous head-to-heads. So thank you very much for tuning in and enjoy the tennis, and I will see you next time.